I'm Jenny, and I'm so excited to have you here with me today. If you're tuning in for the first time, thank you for joining. And if you're a regular, I'm so happy to see you back. Now, today we're going to dive deep into something really important, learning English for the IELTS listening test. Whether you're preparing for IELTS or you just want to improve your overall English skills, you've come to the right place. In this video, I'm going to guide you through everything you need to know to learn English quickly and effectively. It can seem overwhelming at first, but trust me, we're going to break it down step by step so you can practice, learn, and improve with confidence. Let's be honest for a second. Learning a language can be tough, and when it comes to listening, many people feel like it's the most difficult part. I get it. You're sitting there listening to a native speaker, and suddenly the words start to blur together. It feels like they're speaking too fast with different accents and using phrases you don't understand. But here's the thing, that's perfectly normal. We've all been there. In this video, I'll make sure to show you exactly how to tackle these challenges, and you'll be amazed at how quickly your listening skills can improve. Over time, you'll not only feel more confident during the IELTS listening test, but you'll also be able to understand everyday conversations, movies, podcasts, and much more. Why is listening important? You might be wondering, why focus so much on listening? Well, here's the thing. The IELTS listening section is one of the most important parts of a test. It's also the first section you'll face when you sit for the exam, and it's worth 40 marks, which means it can have a huge impact on your overall score. So, if you're aiming to do well in IELTS, you need to understand how to tackle the listening test effectively. But the listening section isn't just about answering questions right. It's about understanding natural spoken English, which can be quite different from the textbook English you may be used to. In this section, you'll hear conversations and monologues from a variety of native English speakers, all with different accents and speeds of speech. This can feel tricky at first, but I promise once you get the hang of it, it'll become second nature. The good news is, this isn't just important for IELTS. Mastering listening in English will help you in real life as well. Think about it. Whether you're traveling, working in an international environment, or just hanging out with friends who speak English, your ability to understand what's being said is essential for effective communication. So, improving your listening skills isn't just about passing a test. It's about making your life easier and more enjoyable in an English-speaking world. What makes listening in English difficult? Now, let's talk about why listening can feel so difficult for many learners. First, the speed of native speakers can be intimidating. They don't speak slowly, and often, they don't pause much between sentences. On top of that, you might hear words that are hard to understand or unfamiliar phrases that throw you off. Then, there's the variety of accents. One of the biggest challenges in IELTS listening is getting used to different accents. You'll hear British, American, Australian, and even Canadian accents. Each has its own rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation style. But that's okay. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to pick out keywords and understand the speaker's main points, even if you don't understand every single word. Finally, there's the fact that native speakers often use idiomatic expressions, phrasal verbs, and slang. For example, you might hear someone say, "I'm a bit knackered," which means they're tired. These expressions can be confusing, but with time, you'll start to recognize them, and it will make listening much easier. The key to success: active listening. So, how can you improve your listening? Active listening is the key. This means really focusing on what the speaker is saying, paying attention to the context, and catching important details. It's not just about hearing the words. It's about understanding the meaning behind them. When you listen actively, you're engaged with the conversation, whether it's a fast-paced discussion or a calm lecture. It means you're not passively letting the words fly by. You're making a conscious effort to pick up on important information, like the main ideas, keywords, and anything that stands out as significant. For example, when you're listening to an IELTS practice test, don't just sit back and hope you'll catch the answers. Instead, try to predict what you'll hear before the audio even begins. Look at the question and think about what kind of answer you expect. This will help you stay focused and prevent your mind from wandering while the audio is playing. Another thing about active listening is understanding the context. If you know the topic of the conversation, it's easier to guess the meaning of unfamiliar words. If someone is talking about booking a flight, you'll expect to hear details like departure times, destinations, and seat numbers. Keeping an eye on the general context helps a lot with comprehension. How to improve your listening skills? The best way to improve your listening skills is through consistent practice. Just like any skill, the more you practice, the better you get. But here's the thing, practicing the right way is crucial. That's why I'm here to give you some effective techniques and resources to use for your practice sessions. One of the best ways to practice is by listening to a variety of materials. If you just listen to IELTS practice tests, you might miss out on hearing different types of English. So, try to mix things up. Watch English TV shows, listen to podcasts, or follow YouTube channels in English. This will help you get used to different speaking speeds and accents, which will be useful for the test and for real-world conversations. Another great technique is to transcribe what you hear. After you listen to something, write it down word for word. This will help you train your ear to pick up on every little detail, even the ones you might normally miss. Plus, it's a fantastic way to learn new vocabulary and expressions. The IELTS listening test is structured in a way that makes it challenging, but also fair if you know what to expect. The test is divided into 4 sections, and each section has 10 questions. So, in total, you will answer 40 questions. It might seem like a lot, but don't worry, we'll go through it together, and you'll see how manageable it really is once you understand the format. The test lasts about 30 minutes, and during this time, you'll hear 4 recordings. These recordings are all in English, and they vary in terms of content, speakers, and accents. After listening to the recordings, you'll have an extra 10 minutes at the end to transfer your answers from the question booklet to an answer sheet. This is really important because it gives you time to check your answers and make sure you haven't made any mistakes when writing them down. Keep that in mind. Don't rush. Now, let's take a closer look at each section and understand what you'll be listening to. Section 1. A conversation between 2 people. The first section is usually a conversation between 2 people in a social or everyday situation. This could be a conversation in a setting like a hotel, a tourist office, or a phone call to make an appointment. For example, you might hear someone booking a hotel room, asking about prices, or looking for directions to a place. It's often quite simple, and the language used will be familiar to you if you've been practicing your English. The speakers in this section will use clear, slow speech, so you won't have to worry about speed. However, the trick here is to listen for specific details like names, dates, times, or prices, which are often the answers to the questions. The best way to approach this section is to focus on the details and try to catch the most important information as the conversation unfolds. Sometimes, the speakers might ask for clarification or repeat things, which can help you understand better, but make sure to listen carefully to avoid missing anything crucial. Section 2. A monologue or single speaker. The second section is a monologue, meaning there is just one speaker. This section often features someone explaining or describing something, like a guide explaining the features of a museum or a tour guide giving directions. The language here may be a little more formal than in Section 1, but it's still relatively easy to follow. The speaker will talk about general topics such as travel, events, or community services, and there will usually be a lot of information to digest. You'll need to focus on the main ideas and key points in this section. Pay attention to things like directions, explanations, or lists of items that are being described, as these are often the answers to the questions. Section 3. A conversation with an academic context. Now we move on to Section 3, which is a little bit more challenging. This section features a conversation between two or more people, and the topic is more academic in nature. For example, it might be a conversation between a student and a professor discussing a research project, or two students talking about a presentation they have to give in class. The conversation will likely include academic language, such as terms related to the subject they are discussing. The conversation will be faster, and the speakers might interrupt each other or express different opinions. This makes it a bit trickier, as you'll need to follow their conversation while picking out important details, especially when they're discussing plans, ideas, or opinions. The key to handling this section is to stay focused and listen for the main points in the conversation. Pay attention to any changes in the conversation, like when the speakers switch topics or when one of them disagrees with the other. These changes often point to key information you'll need for your answers. Section 4. A monologue in an academic context. Finally, we come to the fourth section, which is another monologue, but this time the speaker is talking about a more academic or professional subject. This could be a lecture on a scientific topic, an educational presentation, or even a historical explanation. The speaker might be explaining research, events, or discoveries in detail. The language in this section can be quite complex, and the speaker might use more technical terms or specialized vocabulary related to the subject. The speech will also be a little faster compared to the previous sections, and it might include a lot of factual information. In order to do well in this section, you'll need to follow the structure of the lecture or talk. Often, the speaker will outline several points or steps in their explanation, so pay attention to how they organize the information. It's also helpful to focus on the key ideas and examples the speaker provides, as they're likely to form the basis of the questions. General tips for listening to the IELTS test. As I mentioned earlier, the questions in each section get harder as the test progresses. You'll notice that the recordings also get more complex and faster as you move through each section. So, it's important to stay focused and be prepared for the increasing difficulty. Another challenge is the variety of accents. As you move from section to section, you'll hear different accents: British, American, Australian, and sometimes even Canadian or New Zealand accents. The way words are pronounced might differ, but don't let that trip you up. You just need to practice listening to different accents so you can get used to them. And here's something important. You'll hear each recording only once. This means you'll have to pay close attention the first time because there's no going back. But don't worry, we're going to talk about strategies to help you catch the important information and understand everything clearly. Final thoughts on the listening test format. Now that you understand the general structure, you might feel a little more confident about what to expect. The IELTS listening test is designed to test your ability to understand spoken English in various situations, whether it's casual conversations or academic discussions. The trick to doing well is practice. The more you practice listening to English in different situations, the more familiar the test will feel when you're taking it. But remember, don't rush through the sections. Take your time to understand the information and focus on the key details that answer the questions. Stay calm and focused, and you'll do just fine. Now that you have a good understanding of the IELTS listening test format, it's time to dive into some strategies that will really help you perform well. These strategies will not only help you during the test, but will also improve your overall listening skills in English. Let's break them down step by step so that you can start practicing effectively. 1. Listen for keywords. The first strategy is one of the most powerful techniques you can use to improve your listening for keywords. But what exactly are keywords and why are they so important? Keywords are the most important words in the questions that you will need to focus on while listening. These are usually names, places, dates, numbers, and specific ideas that will help you answer the question correctly. They might be details that are directly related to the question or terms that are used repeatedly during the conversation or speech. Understanding keywords will guide your listening and help you know what to pay attention to. For example, let's say the question is about booking a hotel room. You might hear something like, the guest would like a single room for 3 nights from July 10th to July 13th, and they're requesting a late checkout. Here, the keywords would be single room, 3 nights, July 10th to July 13th, and late checkout. These are the details you need to focus on when the speaker mentions them during the recording. Once you know what the keywords are, it makes it easier to filter out unimportant information and focus on what really matters for the answer. By honing in on keywords, you'll not only make listening more manageable, but also prevent yourself from getting distracted by all the extra details that are thrown into the conversation. 2. Predict the answers before the audio starts. Here's a strategy that might seem a bit unusual, but is actually very effective. Predicting the answers before the audio even starts. This technique helps you stay focused and sets your mind on the right track before you hear the recording. Before the listening track begins, look at the questions you need to answer. Try to predict what information you will hear in the audio based on the question. For instance, if the question is about booking a flight, take a moment to think about what kind of details you might hear. You can guess that the speaker will mention things like flight times, dates, seat numbers, and maybe even the name of the airline. This gives you a mental framework for what to expect. When the recording starts, you're already tuned in to what to listen for, which makes it easier to pick up on important information. This works for every section of the test. For example, if the question is about a hotel booking, you can predict that you'll hear details about the room type, dates, facilities, or special requests. If the question is related to a lecture or talk, you can expect the speaker to explain certain key points, possibly including definitions, examples, or steps. Predicting what you'll hear before the recording starts sets you up to listen actively and efficiently, allowing you to catch the answers as soon as they come up. 3. Active listening. Stay engaged and focused. Another essential listening strategy for the IELTS is active listening. This means you need to be fully engaged with the audio, paying attention to everything the speaker says, and focusing on both the big picture and small details. Active listening isn't just about hearing the words, it's about understanding the meaning behind them. When you listen actively, you should focus on things like tone and emphasis. The speaker may emphasize certain words to highlight important points. For example, if someone says, "Oh, I almost forgot to mention that the discount expires tomorrow," that's a clue that the expiration date is important. Pay attention to these shifts in tone. They often signal key information. Changes in direction. If the speaker changes topics or shifts focus, it's usually a sign that something new is coming. In a conversation, for example, the speakers may start talking about one thing, then quickly move on to something else. Be ready to adjust your attention when this happens. Interruptions or clarifications. If someone interrupts or clarifies something, it often means they're about to correct themselves or provide further details. This can give you important clues about the answers. Staying engaged is key. If you find your mind wandering, you're likely to miss important details, which could affect your ability to answer the questions correctly. So, actively engage with the audio by focusing on both what's being said and how it's being said. One simple way to practice active listening is to listen to short recordings, such as podcasts or news reports, and try to summarize what you've just heard in a sentence or two. This will force you to listen carefully and capture the key points. 4. Practice listening outside the test. One of the most effective ways to improve your listening skills for IELTS is by practicing listening outside of the test environment. The more exposure you get to natural English, the better you'll become at understanding it quickly and easily. Here are some ways to practice. Watch movies or TV shows in English. Choose shows with dialogue that's relevant to real-life situations, such as news programs, interviews, or documentaries. You can start with subtitles, but try to gradually reduce their use as you become more comfortable. Listen to podcasts. There are so many podcasts available for English learners. Listen to ones that interest you, so you're motivated to pay attention. For example, you could try podcasts on topics like travel, science, or history. The more varied the content, the more exposure you'll get to different accents and vocabulary. Follow YouTube channels. There are a ton of English learning YouTube channels, including ones focused on IELTS preparation, news, or even casual vlogs. Pick channels that match your interests or subjects you'd like to improve in. Use language learning apps. Apps like Duolingo, BBC Learning English, or FluentU offer listening exercises that are perfect for improving your listening comprehension. It's important to vary your practice to get used to different accents, speaking speeds, and contexts. The more you practice listening to different kinds of English, the more natural it will feel when you encounter a variety of speakers in the test. 5. Familiarize yourself with IELTS listening practice tests. While listening to real-world material is essential, you should also dedicate time to practicing with IELTS listening tests. These practice tests mimic the actual exam format, giving you a clear sense of what to expect. Try to simulate test conditions by listening to the recordings without pausing or rewinding. This will help you get used to the one-time listening feature of the test. After completing a practice test, don't just check your answers. Review the listening track. Go back and listen to the answers again, paying attention to the details that you might have missed the first time. Also, don't forget to time yourself. Practice tests will help you manage your time during the actual exam, ensuring that you don't spend too long on one question. I'm sure you've already been practicing your listening, but the real question is, are you practicing in a way that will help you improve most effectively? Let's break down exactly how you can practice in a way that will boost your IELTS listening skills and help you feel confident on test day. 1. Listen to a variety of materials. First things first, you want to expose yourself to a variety of listening materials. Don't just stick to IELTS practice tests. Of course, those are important, but to become a truly strong listener, you need to get used to real-world English. The best way to do this is by listening to different accents, different topics, and different speech speeds. So, here are a few suggestions. Watch English language TV shows and movies. Choose a variety of shows, from dramas to documentaries to talk shows. This will help you get used to different speaking styles and accents. Shows like Friends or The Office use everyday English, while news programs and documentaries use more formal language. Watching a mix of both will help prepare you for the different styles of speech you'll hear in the IELTS exam. Listen to news broadcasts. Listening to news channels like BBC, CNN, or NPR will introduce you to formal English and help you get used to hearing a range of accents. News reports tend to be fast-paced, with more technical vocabulary, which will give you a taste of what's in store for sections 3 and 4 of the IELTS test. YouTube videos. There are countless YouTube channels where you can learn English while being entertained. Pick videos that match your level of English but also challenge you. Whether it's a travel vlog, educational video, or a documentary series, listening to real, unedited English will help you get used to the natural flow of conversation. Podcasts. Podcasts are a great tool for improving your listening skills, especially for academic-style English. There are many podcasts available that focus on topics ranging from science and history to business and health. Listen to podcasts where the speakers talk clearly and at a moderate speed, just like in the IELTS listening test. By listening to a variety of content, you'll get used to understanding English in all its forms. The more you expose yourself to different kinds of English, the easier the IELTS listening test will feel. 2. Use IELTS practice tests. While listening to real-world content is essential, it's also crucial to practice with IELTS-specific practice tests. These tests will help you get used to the format of the listening exam, the type of questions asked, and the general pacing of the test. However, it's important that you don't just play the test once and call it a day. You need to approach it in a structured way to get the most out of it. Here's a simple way to use IELTS practice tests effectively. Listen without looking at the questions first. Before you even look at the questions, listen to the audio once to try and understand the general idea. This will help you get comfortable with understanding spoken English without the pressure of answering questions right away. You're just listening for context and main ideas. Listen again, this time with the questions in front of you, now that you have a general idea of what the conversation or lecture is about. Go back and listen to it again while reading the questions. This time, focus on finding specific details that relate to the questions. You'll be looking for things like dates, times, names, or important facts. Check your answers. After listening, check your answers against the recording. This is an essential part of the practice process. Go back to the audio and try to understand why the answer is what it is. For example, if you answered a question incorrectly, listen carefully to the part of the recording where the answer is mentioned. Pay attention to how the speaker phrased it and see if you missed any keywords or details. Listening and answering is a skill, and like any skill, it gets better with practice and feedback. So, don't just move on to the next test without reviewing your performance. 3. Listen and write. Improve detail-oriented listening. One fantastic exercise to really improve your listening skills is to listen and write. The goal here is to train your ears to pick up on specific details that might be easy to miss when you're simply listening passively. This is especially useful for the IELTS listening test, where a lot of the answers are hidden in small but important details. Here's how you can do it. Listen carefully to the audio and try to write down anything important that you hear. This might be numbers, names, or important keywords. For example, if you hear a conversation about booking a flight, you might write down the flight number, departure time, and price. Pause and rewind if you need to. The goal is not to write down everything, but to focus on the key information. For example, if someone says, "The price is $200 for a one-way ticket to Paris," quickly write that down and move on to the next piece of information. Review what you wrote. After listening, go back to your notes and check whether you understood everything correctly. Did you miss any important details? Could you have captured something more clearly? Writing things down forces you to actively engage with the audio, helping your brain make connections and improving your ability to pick out useful information quickly. This exercise will train your ears to pick out the details that you need to answer the questions correctly. Plus, It helps you stay focused and engaged throughout the entire listening process. 4. Simulate real test conditions. If you want to be fully prepared for the IELTS listening test, you need to practice as if you're already sitting in the exam room. This means practicing under real test conditions. No pausing, no rewinding, and no distractions. Here's what you can do to simulate the test environment. Time yourself. Each section of the IELTS listening test lasts about 10 minutes, so practice listening to one section at a time and timing yourself. You should aim to answer the questions in the same time frame as the actual exam. Avoid distractions. Find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted. The IELTS listening test requires you to focus intently, so try to replicate that focus when you're practicing. Keep your phone off and avoid multitasking. Do the listening test in one sitting. In the real test, you won't be able to take breaks between sections. So, practice listening to the entire test in one go, just like you would during the exam. This will help you get used to the length and pace of the listening test. By doing this, you'll get a feel for the real test environment, which will help you stay calm and focused when you're actually sitting for the exam. 5. Review and learn from mistakes. One of the most important parts of your practice is reviewing your mistakes. After every practice session, make sure to check your answers and understand why you made any mistakes. This is key to improving your listening skills. Sometimes, you might miss a question because you didn't catch a particular word, or perhaps you misunderstood a speaker's tone. Take note of the areas where you struggle and make those your focus in the next practice session. Over time, you'll notice that your weaknesses turn into strengths, and your confidence will grow. Now that we've covered the basics and strategies for improving your IELTS listening skills, it's time to address some of the common challenges that many test takers face. Knowing about these challenges beforehand can make a huge difference, as it prepares you to tackle them with confidence. 1. Understanding different accents. One of the biggest challenges you'll face in the IELTS listening test is understanding the variety of accents. In the exam, you will hear speakers with different English accents, such as British, American, Australian, and Canadian accents. If you're not used to hearing these accents regularly, it can feel overwhelming and difficult to understand everything at first. The way words are pronounced can differ from accent to accent, which sometimes makes it tricky to catch everything they're saying. But don't worry. You can get better at understanding different accents with a little practice and some strategies. Here's how you can improve. Expose yourself to different accents. The more exposure you get to different accents, the easier it will become to understand them. So, how can you get this exposure? Listen to podcasts. There are tons of podcasts featuring speakers from all over the world. Pick podcasts with a variety of speakers from different countries and regions. For example, you could listen to BBC podcasts for British English, ABC podcasts for Australian English, and NPR podcasts for American English. Watch TV shows and movies. Choose shows and movies from different English-speaking countries. For example, watching British dramas like Sherlock will help you get used to British accents, while watching American shows like Friends will expose you to American English. Make sure to turn off the subtitles occasionally so you focus more on the audio. Talk to people with different accents. If possible, try to engage in conversation with native English speakers from different regions. This could be through language exchange apps, video calls, or even in-person conversations. The more you interact with people from different backgrounds, the better you'll get at understanding their speech patterns. Focus on the context. When you're listening to different accents, it can be tempting to panic if you don't understand every word. But here's the thing, you don't need to understand every word to get the answer. Focus on the context of the conversation. The general meaning of what's being said can help you guess the answers, even if you don't catch every word. For example, if you're listening to a conversation in Australian English about a flight booking and you don't understand a specific word, focus on the context. The speaker might mention words like flight, departure, and booking details, so you'll know the general idea of the conversation even if you miss a few smaller words. Listen for patterns in pronunciation. Another way to get better at understanding different accents is by learning the patterns of pronunciation. Every accent has its unique way of pronouncing certain words, and once you're familiar with these patterns, it becomes much easier to catch the meaning. For example, in British English, you may notice that speakers tend to pronounce the R sound less strongly, especially when it comes at the end of a word. In American English, the T sound is often pronounced like a soft D, so water sounds more like waiter. If you focus on these patterns and listen to them frequently, it will become easier to understand accents over time. You can even practice mimicking these patterns yourself to improve your listening skills further. 2. Handling speed. Don't panic. Another common challenge in the IELTS listening test is the speed of the speakers. Sometimes the speakers talk really fast, and it can feel overwhelming, especially if you're trying to catch every word. But here's the thing, don't panic. Keep calm and focus on the key points. What can you do? Stay calm. The most important thing is to stay relaxed. If you feel yourself starting to panic because the speaker is going too fast, take a deep breath and remind yourself that it's okay not to understand every word. Remember, the IELTS listening test is designed to test your ability to understand main ideas and key details, not every single word. Focus on key information. Instead of trying to catch every word, focus on the big picture. In the IELTS test, you'll often be listening for things like dates, names, times, and numbers. These details are usually the most important for answering the questions, so focus on those. As long as you understand the key details, you'll be able to answer the questions correctly. Practice listening to faster speeds. To get used to faster speech, practice listening to materials that are spoken quickly. For example, you can listen to fast-paced podcasts or watch news broadcasts. Over time, you'll start to get used to hearing spoken English at a faster pace, which will help you on test day. 3. Overcoming distractors. Distractors are another challenge in the IELTS listening test. These are words or ideas that are designed to mislead you or make you doubt your answer. For example, the speaker might start answering one question, but then they change their mind or correct themselves. This can make it difficult to stay on track and can confuse you if you're not careful. How to handle distractors. Stay focused on the moment. When you're listening, focus on what the speaker is saying right now, not what they said earlier. If the speaker changes their mind or corrects themselves, that's fine. Just pay attention to the final answer they give. For example, if the speaker says, "I thought the meeting was at 10 a.m. Oh no, actually it's at 2 p.m. Focus on the final time, 2 p.m., not the first time, 10 a.m. Don't overthink it. Distractors are there to trick you, but don't let them mess with your mind. If you've heard something clearly, trust your answer. If you're not sure, make your best guess based on what's most logical or makes the most sense in the context of the conversation. Practice with distractor questions. To get better at spotting distractors, practice with IELTS listening tests that include distractors. Over time, you'll get better at ignoring irrelevant information and focusing on what truly matters. 4. Misleading questions. Beware of negative statements. Another common challenge comes when questions are worded negatively. For instance, you might come across a question that says, "Which of the following is not mentioned?" These can be tricky because your brain tends to look for things that are mentioned, but in this case, you need to listen carefully for what's not being mentioned. How to handle negative questions. Look for words like not or never. When you read the question and see the word not, make sure to listen for clues that indicate something is being excluded or denied. This will help you pinpoint the correct answer. Think of opposites. If the speaker mentions a certain option and then negates it, the opposite will likely be the correct answer. For example, if they say, "The meeting was not held at 3 p.m., it was scheduled for 5 p.m., then the correct answer would be 5 p.m. since 3 p.m. is excluded. Final thoughts. Stay confident. You may face challenges with understanding different accents, handling speed, dealing with distractors, or answering negative questions. But here's the most important thing to remember. Stay confident and stay focused. IELTS listening can be tricky, but with consistent practice and the right strategies, you'll improve and be ready for anything that comes your way. The more you expose yourself to different accents, practice with listening exercises, and stay calm during the test, the more natural it will feel. So, don't let the challenges scare you. Embrace them, tackle them head-on, and watch your listening skills grow. Now that we've covered the strategies, the test format, and the practice methods, let's wrap up with some final tips to really boost your listening skills and help you stay on track. This final part will help you stay motivated and focused as you prepare for the IELTS listening test. 1. Stay consistent. Small steps lead to big improvements. The first tip I want to share is to stay consistent. Many people make the mistake of trying to cram all their listening practice into just 1 or 2 long sessions. But trust me, quality over quantity matters more than the number of hours you put in. It's better to practice consistently, even if it's for just 15 to 20 minutes a day, than to overwhelm yourself by trying to do everything in one go. By spreading your practice throughout the week, you'll avoid burnout and keep your brain in learning mode regularly. Here's how you can make consistency work for you. Set aside a fixed time each day for listening practice, even if it's just during your commute or while you're having lunch. Break down your practice into short, focused sessions. For example, listen to a podcast during your morning routine, do one section of an IELTS practice test in the evening, or watch an English language movie over the weekend. Consistency is key because it allows you to gradually build your listening skills without feeling overwhelmed. As you keep practicing day after day, your brain will start to adapt to different accents, speeds, and types of information, making you more confident and capable when the real test arrives. 2. Stay positive. Embrace the journey. Mistakes are part of the process. The second tip is to stay positive. This one is really important because learning a language can feel frustrating at times, and it's easy to get discouraged if you don't see progress right away. But here's the truth. Everyone struggles with listening at first, even the most fluent English speakers. Don't compare yourself to others or expect to understand everything perfectly from the start. It takes time, patience, and practice to improve. Here's a mindset shift that will help you stay motivated. Celebrate the small victories. If you manage to understand a part of the listening audio that you struggled with before, that's progress. If you completed a practice test with fewer mistakes than the last time, that's something to be proud of. Don't worry about mistakes. Every time you make a mistake, it's actually a step towards improvement. Mistakes are part of the learning process, and they give you valuable insight into what you need to work on next. Think of mistakes as a way of finding areas where you can improve. The more you embrace them, the more you'll learn and grow. Focus on your progress. If you've been practicing consistently, even small improvements can make a big difference over time. Remember, learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. Keep tracking your improvement, and trust that with every practice session, you're moving closer to your goal. 3. Keep practicing. Progress comes with consistent effort. The third tip is simple but crucial. Keep practicing. As you progress in your preparation, you'll get more comfortable with different accents, speeds, and question types. The more exposure you get to different listening materials, the better you'll be at identifying key information and understanding the speaker's meaning, even if they speak quickly or use unfamiliar vocabulary. Mix up your practice. Practice listening to different kinds of English, whether it's formal lectures, casual conversations, or fast-paced news broadcasts. The more variety you expose yourself to, the better you'll get at understanding all types of English. Challenge yourself. As you improve, don't be afraid to tackle more difficult materials. If you find a podcast or a TV show that's a little above your current level, try listening to it anyway. It might be tough at first, but it will stretch your skills and help you improve faster. Set listening goals. Maybe you want to understand 80% of a listening track, or maybe you want to improve your accuracy in identifying distractors. Whatever your goals are, make them specific and measurable. Setting clear targets will keep you motivated and give you something to work towards. As you keep practicing, your listening skills will naturally improve. With enough practice and dedication, you'll start to see real progress, and the listening test will feel much easier. 4. Stay calm on test day. Trust in your preparation. As you approach your test date, remember that you've got this. By now, you've put in the hard work, and you're well on your way to doing your best on the IELTS listening test. Trust in your preparation and stay calm during the exam. Here are a few tips to help you stay relaxed. Focus on the present moment. During the test, try to keep your mind focused on what's happening right now. If you miss a question or don't understand something immediately, don't dwell on it. Move on to the next question and come back to it later if needed. Breathe and relax. Take a few deep breaths if you start to feel overwhelmed. This can help calm your nerves and keep you focused on the task at hand. Remember, it's a skill. Listening is a skill you've been working on for weeks or even months. Trust in your abilities and know that your practice has prepared you well. 5. Final words of encouragement. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you of something important. Progress is a process. Your IELTS listening test won't be the end of your journey with English. It's just one step in the bigger picture. As you continue to practice and learn, your skills will keep improving. If you stay consistent, positive, and committed to practicing, you will see the results. And even if you don't feel 100% confident now, trust that with every practice session, you're building the skills and confidence you need for the test. I hope these tips have helped you feel more confident and motivated as you prepare for the IELTS listening test. Remember, with practice, you'll get there. So keep listening, keep learning, and keep moving forward. You're doing an amazing job, and I can't wait to see how much you've improved. I'll see you next time here on English Lab.